it was a headache for a while, and I was like, okay, what are we doing wrong here? Because I mean, there are pictures, we have the pyramid.
Yeah, we guarantee that they are the same
Yeah.
distance and everything. We have to take a lot more pictures than we expected,
Yeah.
and they were around 250 tons. And this is made by hand, by the divers, putting it in the net, lifting it with the lifting bag, moving it away from the wreck.
The shape wouldn't inform you of what are you looking at, really.
So basic.
So basic.
Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will be talking about a very interesting wreck in Ilha de Mozambique, Nossa Senhora de Consolação of 1608, which gave us at the end of the excavation a very nice surprise. With me is today again Alex, my son, that he was the author of great part of this work we did with Photomosaic of the wood structure. So we will talk about it. Let's dive into it. The Nossa Senhora da Consolação, it was a Portuguese ship that was sunk during the Dutch siege of the island in 1608, when the Dutch fleet tried to steal that boat from the Portuguese. The ship was inside the harbor in Ilha de Mozambique, and as part of their attacks, they tried to tow this boat out and take it with them to the Netherlands. But in the way, the Portuguese fortress started bombing the Dutch ships, and the ship was left alone. So the ship drifted and sank on the other side, in the north side of the channel of Ilha de Mozambique, and it sank there. Obviously, the Portuguese rescued from the ship everything they could after the Dutch left. They even set it on fire to avoid the Dutch ships to come back and, steal whatever treasure she may have still.
Making the access harder.
Yeah. Exactly. And well, actually, I think, because this was a practice, I think they burned the ships in order to, when the water come up and then extinguish the fire, that the enemies will not see the ship.
Right.
Where it is, because it's sticking out of the water, it's very shallow.
Whatever was sticking out of the water disappears.
Disappeared. And we found that wreck in 2000, in the year 2000, and during some years we were evaluating if excavating the wreck or not, because it had a huge ballast pile, you remember?
Yes,
Well,
I remember.
Plenty of tons of ballast stones.
Yeah, it was my first shipwreck, and it was very rookie friendly because it was shallow, and the weather there normally is really nice because it's protected by the island, and that area is kind of inside this, it's not a bay, but...
we call it the Mozambique Bay, yeah.
Right.
Bay.
And yeah, the first thing I noticed is there was some wood structure already exposed at the time I came into the excavation, but most of it was covered by ballast stone. So for the longest time, the main job was to uncover whatever grid we were working on, which requires, I don't, how deep was this? In some areas was pretty deep, the amount of ballast that we had to...
Yeah, we had places nearby the stern. There were places that had more than 2 meters of ballast stones piled one on top of the other. This, it may sound, like nothing, but it's a lot of stones we removed from the wreck. We calculate the stones we removed from the wreck, and they were around 250 tons.
Right.
And this is made by hand, by the divers, putting it in the net, lifting it with the lifting bag, moving it away from the wreck. It's a painstaking job.
Yeah, we did a few different ways. Sometimes it was just by using, I guess it was like beer bottle crates and filling them up and uncovering that specific grid. And then once we already excavated that area and moved to a new one, we will fill it back. So it was very loopy. It was always bring stones there, bring them back, and uncover the new area so it would protect the wood structure that we already...
Yeah, the thing is that, as I had mentioned in other episodes, finding wood structure of a very early ship, part of the hull, is not that common, because the marine organisms will feed heat on the wood, it will destroy the wood, organic material will disappear very quickly. So it is necessary a combination of an event when the ship ended up in the seabed and the coverage of that wood by something that will create an anaerobic environment in which the microorganisms will not grow that fast. So as soon as we realized that it was actually a large or possibly a large part of the wood structure of the ship surviving under the ballast, we made our task to try to document that wood. It is incredible. Sometimes one doesn't realize how many gaps in the knowledge that we have of our own creations like ships. In the construction of the ships, there are plenty of holes in this knowledge. So every time that you find this sort of very early wood structure, we are talking about 1608, that ship was built actually in 1598, I think. So we are talking 16th century. So to study the construction techniques and which kind of wood and how do they put it together, it was for us a priority.
Right. I remember, if I remember correct, once we decided to make documenting the full wood structure of the ship, at that time we already had excavated most of it, right?
We have lowered down the level of the ballast a lot across the entire site, but we haven't removed the ballast from top of the wood.
Right, it was covered, and then we decided to figure out a way to have a picture of the full thing, which was how long, I believe?
No, it was 32 meters long. Times 23 meters. And this is a shallow wreck. This is a wreck that, let's say, in high tide, it would be about 6.5 meters deep. In low tide, sometimes it's less than 2 meters. So to get the right distance from the remaining wood structure to make the photos and then put photos together or make a drawing or anything. So to make the photomosaic or a drawing of the wood structure that is coherent, it took a lot of creativity from the team to try to figure out how we did that.
Yeah, because in the ideal world, you have distance and visibility to be able to just hover on top of the shipwreck and take a picture.
Yeah, well, that would be ideal.
Right?
That would be ideal.
But it was impossible. It was way too large and too shallow. So there was no way, there was no angle to take a picture or 3 pictures that you could stitch together from a distance. And this area was also, it normally didn't have the greatest visibility.
No. So we had to get the camera close enough to the wood. Alex was mentioning that we uncover one grid. So we make this grid, the squares to excavate in control. And then we took the ballast stones out of that place, this square. We cleaned the wood with the hand, but we still had the problem of how to use the camera. You have to make sure that every photo is taken at the same distance.
Yes.
So they will reflect the same scale. And we came up with this pyramid that we made.
It was a pyramid made out of metal rods, I believe. And it had a little screw on top, like a plate with a hole and a screw to screw in a camera. And when the tide, because I think sometimes the tide, when it was too low, the pyramid would stick out of the water.
Yeah, the camera was sticking out of the surface, so we were waiting there for the tide to come up, so the camera would be in the water again.
Yes, and then we took pictures systematically, uncovering each grid at the time.
That was 2 meters times 2 meters, the base of the pyramid where the camera was. So we had this 4 meter square area that we had to clean, move the stones away, take various photos because you cannot guarantee that a photo will be enough.
Right.
Also, we have this, if it was close to the wood, we wanted to get as much detail as you can, meaning that even we made this big, now I will explain how we made this big photomosaic, but you wanted to have even the place where the nails and the bolts were in the wood. And if you want to do that, you have to make sure that in the photo you take, there is no fish going by, or an algae that was
or a
floating.
bubble or something. And I remember by the time we started receiving all this data with all the photos numbered with, okay, this one is in grid BA or B1 or whatever, that the time of the day that was taken, because all these pictures weren't taken in one afternoon. It took a couple a week or something.
It took a couple of weeks of
right,
moving
couple
rocks.
Weeks. Yeah, and also in the sea, depending on how the current is behaving in that moment, some days you have very clear water and it was very sunny. Some days the water looked green, and so it's not like you could stitch them up together and they would look.
No, it would be very ugly.
It wasn't like a puzzle. You had to then, with Photoshop, also figure out how to put all these pictures together in a way that they will fit like a puzzle and process each one so that the levels and the contrast will kind of match in between them. And then after we got them all and we had the pictures of the whole shipwreck, which we were like, okay, now it's easy. And we spent some time trying to stitch them together, and I realized that I couldn't, for some reason, I couldn't make two pictures that were taken side by side, make the planks fit. Maybe a couple would fit, and then once you try to put a third picture, the alignment was all wrong. And then you also discovered
deformation, this error in the edge of the lens.
So yeah, so the lens deformed the image close to the sides of the frame and bend them.
It distort them.
So they wouldn't fit. And you had to crop each picture close to the center of the lens where there is less distortion. Which it seems like something so simple and
so basic.
But it was a headache for a while, and I was like, okay, what are we doing wrong here? Because, I mean, they're pictures, we have the pyramid.
Yeah, we guarantee that they are the same distance and everything. But yeah, you have this situation that actually it turned out, for us, it represented, we have to take a lot more pictures than we expected. Because of the 4 square meter frame that we had actually to overlap those frames. This means moving rocks a lot. That way and this way, cleaning
the sand out of
the grid and cleaning the wood itself, because one of things is interesting, and it's a very important part of Alex's job. There were different types of wood, and in the very clear and nice days with very transparent water, in the pictures you could see that there are some which are more dark and there are some which are more clear.
Yeah, I remember you had the thick structural wood that was darker, and then you have these planks that will run along the whole structure that were much lighter, probably from a different...
That's ceiling planks. The planks in the bottom of the hall, they were made of different material, much lighter, much soft actually. And you had to match those colors so you understand what are you watching at. That was a hell of a job, because you also... I mean, we all knew how to use Photoshop to take the red from the eyes of a photo.
Yeah, maybe some auto-adjust...
Exactly, not to that level of stitching photos together and giving the same levels of illumination and color. That should have been a difficult job for you, right?
That was very difficult, and at the time our computers were not built to handle so many layers in an image. And I remember to save it. It took a long time. Every time you had to save it, and you had to save it often because you don't know if the battery of the computer will crash.
And in the island we have a lot of blackouts. Remember, there were blackouts almost every day, so you could lose your entire job.
The image was huge. It was a huge file, but the closer we got to having a big picture, because that's also the thing. You guys will see the image here in the video, but we never saw that in front of us. That shipwreck was never fully cleaned up. You could see the whole thing and have a big picture. So it meant a lot for us to see the whole thing.
We also discovered the wreck. I mean, the remains of the wood structure, we discovered it because of the photomosaic.
Right.
We could actually see it because, as I mentioned, you clean this 4 square meter area, you clean it, you take the photos, some photos, then you put the ballast stones back again, you clean the one in the side, you do the same. So you never see more than a couple of grids clean from stones, so that you could see the wood itself. There were some places nearby the mast step that we needed to clean it more. But that was a part of the wreck site. It was not in the entire wreck.
No, it was probably like a 30% of or less. And it's like having a puzzle in front of you and seeing each piece at a time, and you kind of have an idea of what it looks like, especially for me.
But you have to put it together. So
Yeah.
you didn't see, I mean, you don't have the vision
No.
of the site to figure out if what I'm doing here is correct and the bend of the wood.
Of course.
That is really hard.
No, and for me, that I'm not a nautical specialist or even close to being knowledgeable about ship structures. I've been working on shipwreck for like, I don't know, 5 months, working every day on it. I have no idea what part of the shipwreck I'm excavating.
Exactly.
I know exactly how to put it in the database, and I found this here and there. But once we put it together, I was like, oh,
this is how it looks like.
It's a shipwreck.
It's a ship.
Yeah.
It is funny because also it happens to both of us and to our colleagues in the team. You will see the photomosaic in the video. It has a narrow part that looks like a bow,
right,
and it has a more rounded part on the other end that obviously looks like a stern. And it's exactly the other way around. The way in which the wood rotted away and it broke and it got flattened. Remember that this is a ship that has the shape of a vase. And then it goes on the seabed, tilt, and the ballast stones just slipped to one side.
Right.
The weight of these ballast stones over 400 years with the wood being waterlogged, it flattens the thing out. So it is difficult to guess or to see which was the original curve of those woods because they were not straight.
Right. Exactly. Like there was a lot of wood left, but the shape wouldn't inform you of what are you looking at, really. You're seeing a bunch of overlapping, very pretty pieces of wood, but you're like, was this ship flat? You know, like how
it was like a barge.
Was it a square? You know,
it was a barge.
Yeah.
No, it was a very interesting job to do because, let's say, we did that, and in the same moment we were doing that, we were excavating, because when we are removing these ballast stones, we found incredibly quite some artifacts which were within the ballast stones. Remember that beautiful blue glass little bottle?
Yeah,
that was intact.
The most fragile looking glass artifacts that you would think, well, that was found in mud or sand or somewhere very safe and soft. And no, these things were under rocks.
really
hard
heavy
rock.
And we found plenty, because we found this blue little bottle, but we found the candy of porcelain, the Chinese porcelain candy. We found the statue of Jesus, a drinking glass made of glass, beautiful one. And well, we were doing this task like systematically. Okay, you are excavating the wreck grid by grid, finding all these beautiful artifacts. And then when you get to the wood structure, bring the pyramid, put the pyramid, the camera. Also the camera we had, it was a camera of one team member. It was not even the company camera. It was a camera of one team member. It was a cyber shot with very few megapixels or whatever we had at the moment. This job was done, although the ship was found in the year 2000, this job was done in 2006.
Yeah.
And the quality of the photo, we really need to get the camera close to the wood, so you will get some details out of it.
No, back then we didn't even have GoPros or anything practical like that. I remember having to take pictures even later on, 2007, 2008. And I remember this camera was like, the casing was big like this.
The housing is this size and the camera is small, and you don't have access to many of the buttons.
And the quality of the image was very mediocre.
Really low.
Yeah. So I think we did pretty good with what we had.
We did. I'm very proud of that job. Well, first because it was mostly, obviously it was an entire team working on that, but it was a lot of work between him and me.
Yeah.
Because I had the idea what to do. He was the one responsible to make it happen. And we were exchanging every afternoon. Okay, because this photomosaic, we took almost 1,000 photographs to be able to cover all the area and to avoid this distortion of the edge of the photos. And we were deciding, okay, this photo, he telling me, this photo, it doesn't fit here. Are you sure it's from this place? Of course it's from this place. We took it, remember this, let's take it again tomorrow.
No.
We do it again. So it is a painstaking job.
It was. At the beginning when we started stitching it together, I remember the happiness of the first day, being like, yes, now is the fun part of putting a puzzle together. And then it became a real headache. It was like, are we even able? Because we obviously, you have all these images. You don't want to start messing with the pictures to make them fit.
No, of course,
then
because then
it
you
defeats
are
the
distorting
purpose.
the reality.
Yeah.
I think what you need is to get the best record of what is down there, not your imagination.
Exactly. So after we had all that and some measurements, then I remember I did a drawing on top of it.
Yeah.
So it was clearer what you're looking at. Because it's true that there's a lot of things in there. There's wood, there's sand, there's seaweed concretion. And the concretions in the pictures are not as clear.
No, as in the drawing.
No.
Because you know where they are and then you can reproduce them.
Yeah.
But in the pictures are not
the pictures
actually.
they look very mushy.
We were working this, the entire thing. Obviously, I talked to some colleagues and I asked for advice because I knew of other wreck sites that have been, let's say, in more friendly conditions to do that people had made these photomosaics in a very nice way. And everyone was telling me, the ideal case. You have to put some PVC pipes all over the site and then you move the camera in the same distance.
Kind of railing.
In a railing. Yeah, okay, that sounds very good. First, we didn't have the pipes. We were in Isla de Mozambique. You could not leave a buoy in the site from one day to the other because it will get stolen or lost. So, let alone PVC pipes. And
nice new PVC pipes.
No, that was not an option. So, we have to come up with this solution that since the very beginning, we thought, okay, this will work. But in the process of making it work, it was really hard.
It was really hard. But I think the result, it was amazing.
Man, I love it. I love it. And at the end of taking the pictures, when we realized that there were very few meters to go, like moving ballast, where the ballast finish, and you don't know, sometimes they would finish before the ballast. So I said one day, okay, let's put a diver in this frame. Let's put a diver so at the end we have some sort of scale, human scale that you could see, because for me it was a gigantic thing. Imagine this was considered the largest remains of wood structure of a Portuguese East Indiaman from the 17th century ever found. A very beautiful and a great research done before that. It was made in the Portuguese ship that till that moment was the largest one, and it was 12 meters times 4, and we are talking about 32 times 23. So we couldn't leave that opportunity escape. We had to record it the best way. But for me that was gigantic, and I said I will put a diver here. Hey man, go down there and we take the picture of this place with you, without you, and with you again.
Yeah.
And at the end, when we put it together, you can see this little diver. I will point the diver, otherwise you will not see it in the scene. And then you can see the magnitude of the size of that place. It was super nice.
Yeah, especially because also that place was covered in stones and they were moved out of it and onto it and then out of it again a few times. And you can tell, okay, this was all done by hand. That was a lot of work.
Yeah, man. This is one of the things that we have been talking about in the expeditions. You have to get this creativity, and it's also hard work. Many of my friends that get the image from the movies and documentaries of what is an expedition, an archaeological expedition, when you eventually could find even treasure, it's like, a treasure expedition, this is fun every day. Mm-hmm. And in this particular wreck that didn't have any treasure, we knew it didn't have any treasure. And just the fact that you have to move 250 tons up and down of ballast, or up and down, and put them back. Take a picture. Picture is not good. Let's take the picture tomorrow again. So move the ballast again because we already advanced. And that was, was challenging, but as you said, it is a rewarding job.
Very rewarding.
When you finish.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was the last time I dove there, we were, kind of saying goodbye to the shipwreck.
And covering again.
Covering it with ballast and then throwing sand on it with the other end of the water dredge, just to really leave everything.
To emulate the way we found it.
Right. It was very cool.
Because this is one thing that you have to take into account when you do this job. This wood structure has survived, as I mentioned, because it was in an aerobic environment. If you leave portions of this wood structure exposed to the seawater, which is rich in oxygen, it will degrade it very fast, and the sun, and the animals. So you really have to, I mean, there are super modern techniques to do that. There are some materials that you should put first on the wood and then you cover it with this or that. Okay, we didn't have any of that. It was not even that common at the time. We're talking 2006. So we did the best we could, which was trying to leave the wreck the way we found it, with the same ballast stones, with the same sediment from around the ship, so it doesn't come with a different pH from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think we left it fully protected, I believe. It's a very shallow shipwreck. There's a lot of sunlight. You would think algae and coral would grow on these hard surfaces, so there's no way we could leave it open like that.
Probably today, I haven't been there in many years, so probably today that is completely invisible. The person who don't know that there is remains of a wood structure down there would never find it. I did something which sometimes is, well, I wouldn't say it's a practice, but it's something I like to do when you leave, because we left the wreck so similar to the way we found it that in the mast step where the mast goes, there is a cavity, and there I put a bunch of coins, the Mozambican coins made in 2006.
Right.
So if in 200 years from now another archaeologist come and said, oh, it was intervened in 2006,
you know, that's awesome,
that, because I really believe that by now this wreck is almost as it was when we found it.
Yeah, it would look virgin probably.
It wouldn't look, and anyone could be misled and said, oh, okay, we have found a wreck, let's study it. And
let's waste our time.
Let's waste our time and remove 250 tons of ballast to find out that there were some guys here in 2006. Well, this is a short episode because we both are so happy and proud of being able to, with such a limited amount of resources and with a lot of hard work and creativity, to come up with this beautiful, and remember, this Photomosaic, we did that. That's why he said it was a heavy file and he was struggling with the file, because we did this 1-to-1. And I'm talking about an image that has 32 meters long times 23. That is super heavy, and super heavy for the computers we had at the time. Is super heavy still today, but you could even print a gigantography. I don't know what's the name of that in English.
I don't know,
but like a gigantic poster, and had it 1 by 1 because without getting pixeled.
Right. We have a full resolution, the way it was taken, and we never downsized it for sake of making it easier, because there's really all the info that a camera at the time could gather underwater.
So as I said, it's a short episode. We really wanted to share it with you because it also shows a bit which part of the archaeological research in shipwrecks is not directly related to the cargo, it's not directly related to the artifacts, which is what everyone has in mind. Okay, the artifacts will tell you the story. In this case, also the naval construction of the ship, the architecture that was used, and the way of putting the parts together gave us a lot of information. And when you are lucky enough to find this very rare situation in which the wood or part of the wood has survived, at least in tropical waters, you really have to take the chance and go all the way to the point in which you could say, okay, the most I could do for it, I did.
Yeah, exactly with what we had, and it's true. In that shipwreck, I think the main character was the ship itself.
It is the ship more than anything that she was bringing, because remember, the Portuguese burned her and then took everything out so the Dutch will not profit from her. So the only element or the only part, the entire story of this shipwreck that will give us new information was the ship itself. And that's why we needed, and we immediately realized that we had to do that. So guys, thank you very much for watching the video till the end. If you like it, please give it a like, share the video with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, and leave in the comment section if you have questions about this, all these technical aspects. If you want to make questions to Alex, obviously we will be reading in the comments, and if there is anything for him, I will let him know, he will answer, and let's keep on diving.